So in the last hour, we started out with Congressman Keith Ellison, who most often is described as the only Muslim in Congress. But, you know, there's so much more to him than that. The guy is an attorney, and as an attorney, he understands the difference between a natural person and an artificial person. That is, a natural person is like you and me. We can breathe, we eat, we live, we die, we love, we hate, we fill in the blanks, actually. You know, all that stuff. An artificial person is a government, a corporation, or a church. And that's it. So he has proposed a constitutional amendment that explicitly says corporations are not natural persons. Now, you know, I could quibble with him about the language of it. I think it's going to get fine-tuned over time. I don't think his language is exactly perfect, but boy, is it a hell of a lot better than nothing. In fact, it's a lot better than most of the things that I've seen. Yesterday, the Los Angeles City Council, you'll recall a couple of days ago, we had Caitlin I can't remember how she pronounces her first name. Belknap is her last name. On this program, Caitlin and David Cobb and those folks who run MoveToAmend.org was on the program talking about how the City Council of Los Angeles was going to have this vote yesterday, and please show up. You know, we want to pack the room. It was a unanimous vote. Los Angeles is now. This is, you know, I know in terms of media markets, radio markets, because that's, you know, the rankings that I see. Los Angeles is the second largest radio market in the United States. And, you know, we are live in Los Angeles every day on KTLK and you know, other vehicles as well. But Los Angeles it's a big deal. It's a big city. And here, arguably the second largest, I don't know if it's actually the second largest city in the United States. I just know it's the second largest media market. But here you have one of the largest cities in the United States. The City Council officially, on record, recommending to the congressional delegation of that state to pass a constitutional amendment to the Constitution of the United States that says that corporations are not people and that money is not speech. And as I said, in the last hour, Congressman Keith Ellison came on and said he's saying the same thing. He has introduced legislation to that effect, in fact, a specific amendment to that effect, into the House of Representatives. You can contact your member of Congress and tell them, hey, support what Congressman Ellison is doing. I guarantee it's going to be one of several. And some of them are going to try and water this down, and they're going to say, oh, we shouldn't go after corporate personhood. The idea that corporations are persons, after all, they should have their 14th Amendment rights so that Walmart can say, you have to let us into your community because not to do so would be to discriminate against us. Or the tobacco and asbestos companies, you know, the Fourth Amendment rights of privacy, Fifth Amendment rights to not incriminate themselves. They have to be able to cover up their crimes. Halliburton just destroyed all that evidence that they might have been the ones responsible for murdering 11 men in the BP Gulf explosion, disaster, oil spill thing. And who at Halliburton is going to jail? As far as I can tell, nobody. So anyway, the day that I opened the microphone on this program 9 years ago, not like to this day, but it's been 9 years we've been doing it. We're in the 9th year of this show. I have been talking about this. I mean, that was the year after my book, Unequal Protection, came out, about corporate personhood. About and I've been saying literally since the first day of this show, we made the decision really early on. We were not going to do politics as sport. Oh, it's my team, your team. You know, it's who's above, who's below, who's, you know, all that kind of stuff that you see in the mainstream media. That instead we were going to actually talk about real issues on this program and try to educate people, wake people up, and bring democracy back to America. And step one in doing that is making people aware of the fact that corporations are not persons and money is not speech, but one of the three branches of government has said so, and they did so with no constitutional authority, and they did so against the wishes of both Congress and the president and various Congresses and presidents all the way back to Thomas Jefferson. And that one agency is the Supreme Court. And I pointed out where this will go, this domination by corporations, will be an out-of-balance system where eventually you will see the beginnings of the death of democracy. And people 9 years ago were going, well, actually, it was the early years of the Bush administration. They were going, yeah, looks like it, doesn't it? But, corporate person, what the hell's that? Do you think that the Italians, any of the modern Italians, now, I'm not talking about the people who were alive in the 1930s when Mussolini came to power. There's very few of them left. But people who were born post-World War II, do you think that those Italians who have always seen their country as a small d democratic state, do you think that they thought in their wildest dreams that they would ever see the day come when their elected prime minister was replaced by an appointed bankster? Do you think that the Greeks, the cradle of democracy, 3,000 years ago, democracy's first experiment took place in Athens? Do you think that the Greeks, in their wildest dreams, ever thought that they would see the day when their prime minister, their elected prime minister, would call for a referendum, for a vote by all the people in the country about whether or not they should bail out the banksters, and simply because he called for democracy, he would be replaced by an appointed, unelected bankster? And now the plans that Merkel and Sarkozy are pushing would basically say if Angela Merkel can get enough of the EU nations to sign on to these treaty changes, and she's saying, oh, this may take 5 years, but we'd like to do it really quickly. What these changes will say is that any nation in the European Union can have their elected government replaced by banksters and bureaucrats if the EU decides that they're not running their country the way that it should be run. Well, you say, well, that's Europe. The Italians, they've done crazy stuff. Fascism was a word that was invented by Mussolini, or at least promoted by him, invented by Giovanni Gentile in his administration. Never happened in the United States, right? You ever heard of Benton Harbor, Michigan? Michigan Republican Governor Rick Snyder going into the city of Benton Harbor saying, your elected city council, they're out. We are replacing them with one of my buddies, a guy named Joseph Harris. We're going to pay him $100,000 a year or more, and he's going to run your city, and he's not elected, and you got no say in what the decisions he makes. Oh, and we're going to do the same thing in Detroit with one of the school districts. Maybe we'll do it with the city. You think democracy isn't at risk here in the United States right now? And in our allied countries in Europe? And what's driving it? It's the banksters. And what gave them that power? The idea that corporations are persons and money is speech so they can seize our political process.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And we have to unroll that, we have to undo that, and we have to do it now.